Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. How you doing? It is Wednesday. It is Wednesday early morning. So we're talking with Matt, the mortgage guy. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great.
Awesome, Matt. Well, I want to talk about the mortgage market. We have wonkiness with the 10-year note going down. We have rates going down. Last week, mortgage survey said applications to purchase were up 8%, but down 23% year on year. Want to talk about self-employed, investors, all that stuff. Where do you want to go? You're in the mortgage business. What's going on?
I think that I would love to just, remind people that if you're self-employed, it's not easy to get a loan, but it's possible. And I think that if we're talking about the most recent trends, it's not necessarily getting a lot harder, but if you're on the edge, right? Debt to income wise, or if you've got wonkiness, lenders aren't needing to be flexible. They've got so much darn business.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's part of it. It's a funny stat I heard recently, and I'm going to inject it here because I think it's interesting, is that they track the credit scores of mortgage applications. And the credit score of mortgage applications for whenever this report was done very recently, it was down like 21 points.
Oh.
And, you might see a piece of data like that and be like, is people's credit getting worse? Here's what I think. And I've talked to my team about this, doing a few hundred loans a year. We've got our own kind of data. When rates got really good in April 2020, everybody who was super well qualified went out and said, I'm going to get a sub 3% 30-year fixed mortgage. And they all got taken care of, right?
Yep.
During this housing craze that we've seen, where a lot of, investors, owner occupied, folks that are part of the K-shaped recovery that are doing well have gone out and bought a lot of real estate because they believe in real estate, right? And so all the well qualified did all their real estate buying. And what I think now is that the rest of the pack is trying to buy real estate. And 21 points lower is a huge shift. If the average score was 731 and now it's 710, I don't know what the exact numbers were, but that's huge. That's a lot of 640s and 650s pulling down the other 780s. And I see it on my team. And that's why when I see a stat like that, I can look and say, okay, of the last 1,000 people that I've talked to, what am I seeing? Yeah. And my team is saying, you know what, we've had more turn downs recently. What is it about who we're attracting? Right. And I don't think it's necessarily us attracting less qualified buyers. I think it's that, the buyers that are kind of coming through now are the ones who haven't bought in the last year, because those were all the super well qualified. They knew what they wanted. They knew they were qualified. They went out and bought. They went out and refinanced and got all their stuff into sub 3% 30-year fixed. And now the rest of the pack is saying, hey, I want a little bit of piece of that. But it's the rest of the pack that's not as well qualified.
That's interesting. And I think I would agree with that. Right. And the other thing, when I think about this more long-term, right? If you're top end of the K-shaped recovery, which we were talking about rightly so over a year ago, you lock into sub 3% mortgages, you're really out of the refi game for a decade at least. Right. Cause I think we both agree rates won't be sub 3 in a couple of years. So I think it's going to be interesting how many, because again, the mortgage history for the 20 years I've been doing this, generally speaking, has been down. So it made sense to do a cash out refi or a rate and term for better cash flow. I don't know what's going to happen when we kind of hit that bottom of this year and next year, and we spend 5 or 6 years going up. I think the mortgage business.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because you're right. Like we've literally spent 5 or 6 years trending down.
Yeah. Eventually it has to turn, I would think. I mean, I've never asked you this before. Do you think we could go negative? Do you think we can go negative at the Fed level? Right?
Anything's possible. I think,
there you go. Yeah.
The Fed continues to surprise me with stuff that they've done and continue to do. So I wouldn't put it past them as much as, everything you read and hear is like, it's not going to go negative. We're not going to do that. It could happen. Right. And when rates were sub 4%, I thought it was like the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I said, rates are never going to be this low again. People were seeing trends going lower, and I'm going to wait until it gets sub 3%. And you probably laughed at that 2 years ago. We're like, you really think you're going to get a 30-year fix with a 2 in front of it? And then here we are. So
again.
Who am I to say that there's never going to be a 2% 30-year fix? Because anything's possible.
Yeah. I think we talked about this last week, but my memory might be off. I think the lowest kind of 30-year fix you saw was 2.5 last March or
Right.
April.
Yeah. And we're talking for everybody to be clear
Yeah.
without paying any points,
Right.
because,
No points.
today you could go get a 1.875 on a 30-year fixed, and it would cost you a lot of money. It would
Yeah,
cost
you
you
could.
6 points up front. Right. And
Yeah.
you're literally prepaying the interest that you're saving. And
Yeah.
so it doesn't do you any good to prepay the first 11 years, which is what I've heard people talk about with points. It's kind of a good way to think about it, is that you're prepaying that versus paying it on a monthly basis. But, let's inject a little lesson for everybody here. The rate is not the only thing you're looking at. I talked to somebody yesterday, and we're looking at stuff in the 2.875 range. And they said, oh, so-and-so said they could do a 2.5. I go, okay, I can do a 2.25. How much do you want to pay? You want to pay 19,000 in points up front? No, I'm going to get you the most cost-effective mortgage. That does not mean the lowest rate. The lowest rate with a big old cost attached to it is a really bad idea. And so, different companies, their marketing thing is just, let's put out a low rate that looks flashy and attracts people in. Trust me, there's enough suckers that believe in that stuff, or else they'd stop doing it. And so make sure if you're getting a mortgage, whether it's a purchase or refinance, you're looking at rate and cost.
Yeah.
Because, you can get a really low rate at a high cost, or you can get a good rate at next to no cost. And you got to figure out where the balance is. Generally, it's near the par interest rate where you're not paying points, or maybe paying a half a point.
Yeah. And again, these are all things you're adding to the Mortgage 101 course, correct? And how to get started one rental at a time.
Yep. I think we are 8 recorded as of yesterday.
Nice.
And so
we got 4 loaded. We loaded 4 already. So it's
yep. Those next four by early next week. And then the final 4 by the week after. That's going to be, my on-air promise. It's recorded now. I can't go back.
There you go. I like it. Well, let's talk about just a couple of buyers that I see out there. The self-employed buyer, you kind of hit it up front. Still tough, right? It's possible, but tough. Lots of paperwork.
Right. And I mean, I've had self-employed borrowers reach out to me and say, hey, I'm working with somebody, but they're asking for all this stuff, right? Can I come work with you? And you guys ask for less stuff? It's not me. It's Fannie and Freddie and the enhanced guidelines that have said, we want your last 2 years of tax returns. We want a year-to-date P&L, and we want business bank statements. And what they're doing with that P&L and those bank statements is looking to see that the business is as healthy as it was on last year's tax returns, or healthier. They want it trending up, or at least trending on par with what it was last year, because if you're trending down, and really, I think this goes away relatively soon.
Okay.
Because last year it was obvious where, some businesses were just hurting. So if you had an 18 and 19 tax years that were great, they wanted you to show a P&L in 2020, see how you were affected by COVID.
Yeah.
If you survived that and you filed 20 and 20 was a good year, more often than not, I would think, I'm just some guy on YouTube, that 2021 is trending well as well.
You would think,
right?
yeah. If you did okay
made
in
it through
2020,
right. And so,
okay.
some of that stuff will start getting lifted. I think, I think the second half of 2021, they're going to say, okay. But I think that some of the stuff in the self-employed space is kind of forever changed. It's not up to me. I wish it was, but they're just more strict on self-employed borrowers. It's the way it's always been. Yeah. It'll probably continue to be that way. And so, more documents are going to be needed, and you're going to have to prove that you've got a healthy business, more than just you have in the past with tax returns. Now they want P&L, they want business bank statements and whatnot.
Very cool. Well, let's talk about investors, right? We talked, I think you brought it to us like 6 or 8 weeks ago, where FHFA lowered a percentage of investment loans in second homes. Remember that? I think it went from like 11 to 7% or something. What have you been seeing in investor deals come through? Harder, tighter credit, getting easier? What's going on there?
You know what? As much as there was all that hurrah about that, I think what happened was there was an immediate like, oh shit. And so some lenders that wrote a lot of investment stuff just pulled back, made it more expensive, made it a little bit tighter. And I think that through competition and through some lenders going, well, I don't want to jack up my rates too much, I'm going to lose all the business. There's been a little bit of leveling out, because at first, as a broker, I'm in a great seat where I can look at 8 different lenders and say, yep, they're still priced competitively. No, they're not. They're out, they're good for these type of lenders and 3 to 4 units or whatever it is. Right. And so I had 1 and 2 lenders that were head and shoulders above the rest pricing wise. Now I'm seeing the rest of them come back and it's fairly even, because on any given week, any given lender, depending on deal flow and whatnot, they'll throttle up and back. And it's amazing to see, because people don't understand, if a lender is trying to get aggressive and bring in more loans, they just throttle their pricing and they offer great pricing. They're going to get more loans. There's tens of thousands of brokers just ready to send their loans to where they can get the best deal for the consumer. And the same thing goes for when lenders get super busy and they're overwhelmed. They don't want to take 11 days to underwrite a file. So they'll make their rates worse and go back. And, there's interesting stuff going on in the mortgage space. I think that it's a lot of stuff that's good for the consumer. A lot of competition, a lot of price wars. And so nobody's trying to make it extra complicated or extra expensive, because that's bad for business.
Yeah. The other thing I think you said there when we're talking about self-employed, I think is true for all buyers, owner-occupied, investors, self-employed. I think as the economy reopens, we get back to growing again, right? I think we'll, as Q2 reports, we'll technically be out of a recession, where Q2 is above last year. I just think I think everything normalizes. I think the extras or the tightness that was added because of the health crisis, it just all goes away and we just start moving. Is that fair?
I agree for sure. Yeah. Some normalizing in the real estate market, some normalizing in lending guidelines. And we've already seen most, overlays stripped away. The few that remain will probably, be gone by Q4 of this year, I would imagine.
Very cool. Folks, again, if you're watching this and you're in California and looking to purchase or do a refinance, you need to reach out to Matt, the mortgage guy. How do you want them to do that?
Just shoot me an email, matt@mattthemortgageguy.com. We are happy to help, even if it's just, I've got a loan estimate from this company. Does this seem right? I can't tell you the hundreds I've seen, whether it's in California or not. And I go, so yeah, that looks right. Because you don't see that many loan estimates. You don't understand what to look for. The good news is that inside of your course, Mike, as soon as that one gets updated, it's how to read a loan estimate. That is in there. And it's as detailed as I could get without being too long-winded on here's what you should be looking for. One of 12 videos that's going to just help you understand the mortgage process.
I love the fact that you offered to create the Mortgage 101 section in my course, which is a bonus section. And you've talked about it several times. You expect to save people thousands of dollars if they get one or multiple loans. I think that's a great goal, because again, reading the statement and understanding what's fixed versus variable is important, right?
Right. Yeah. And I think that it's going to provide people confidence. If you walked into, an investment bank and you had an inheritance of $250,000 to invest, you'd be intimidated. You'd be scared. You wouldn't know what to do. It's the same thing with mortgage, where if you don't understand it at least, elementary level, it's going to be overwhelming. It's going to be intimidating. I want to give you the knowledge to know what to ask your mortgage broker, know what to look for when you see a loan estimate. And so that is going to provide you a little bit of peace of mind knowing, okay, yeah, I know how to read a loan estimate. I'm getting a good deal. I feel good about it. Like, that is worth its weight in gold, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, buddy. I appreciate it. Have a wonderful week.
All right. You too, Mike.
Thanks.